All right, who am I here with?
Hello, I'm Cindy.
Nice to meet you, Cindy.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Today we're going to be talking about Puerto Rico, particularly the U.S.'s involvement in it and how the U.S.'s involvement impacted the country and its economy and its people. So in particular, I'm going to ask you a question in general. How familiar are you with the history of Puerto Rico and its culture?
I don't want to gas myself up too much. I don't want to say I know everything about Puerto Rican culture and history. However, I love Puerto Rico so much. I have seen a video on YouTube about an hour long that was called The Entire History of U.S. and Puerto Rico. And unfortunately, I learned that we have used them and abused them similarly to how we have done with pigeons.
Pigeons. Wow, very interesting. Do you think that Puerto Rico should be a sovereign nation?
That is a great question. It's a very loaded question. I feel, I'm not Puerto Rican myself, so I feel like I shouldn't really have an opinion on this. I think Puerto Rican people themselves should be able to decide whether it should be independent from the U.S., be its own state. Some of them even believe that. I don't believe it should be a state. I'm going to say that confidently. Yeah.
State, as in subservient to the U.S. government?
Yes, as in like a 51st state. I definitely don't believe that. Well, there are arguments towards that as well, because then they would actually get more aid from us. I'm sure their minimum wage would increase. So I guess there are arguments to that as well. But like I said, I think Puerto Ricans should be the judge of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are you familiar that in Puerto Rico, a majority of the residents that live there aren't native as of now?
Aren't native to
Puerto Rico.
Like the Native Americans, Taino?
As in the a majority of the people that are there right now are coming for tax exemptions and
I have. I wouldn't have guessed the majority. That's crazy. I know about Jake Paul and all them, which is just really sad.
No, it really is.
They're not appreciating the culture either. Like they're not even making an effort to learn Spanish or anything, which I think is just sad.
Right. So Operation Bootstrap was actually employed by the U.S. government and turned Puerto Rico into a manufacturing magnet. The way it did this was through federal tax exemptions for companies, which incentivized the majority of these non-native Puerto Ricans to go and live there. Right.
I actually didn't know about that.
Didn't know about
No.
that?
I didn't know it by name. Definitely not.
Yeah. You learn something new every day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the average income for the natives there is actually $21,543.
Wow.
Which is not
really
at all
low.
near the typical U.S. salary.
Right, not at all.
So it kind of makes sense how these people are getting phased out by people going there for financial incentives, right? So because of this quote-unquote issue of overpopulation, there's this desire to make Puerto Rico as economically beneficial to the U.S. as possible.
Right.
So this leads us into the idea of forced sterilization. What are your thoughts just off of the term? What do you think? What is your background?
Well, first things first, I am a feminist. I do believe that women should have a right to their own body and what they choose to do with it. So I think forced anything is bad, much less, forced sterilization, which is directly not giving women the right to reproduce, which is crazy. So I'm very against that.
It's taking away the ability to reproduce.
Yes,
as well,
that's insane.
Which is even worse. So Puerto Rican officials were concerned with this idea of overpopulation, as I said, and this created kind of a shift in U.S. policy that would have a lasting effect on all the people. A man named Blayton Winship advocated for this idea of sterilization based on a eugenics kind of idea. Are you familiar with eugenics?
Yes, I am. I'm not surprised to hear that either, coming from the U.S.
The term was coined by Francis Galton in the 1880s. It's about sexual selection, trying to find the most favorable people, essentially claiming that other people are inferior to
and there are certain characteristics that are favorable.
Exactly. So to talk about the repercussions of this idea of forced sterilization, this deeply racist policy led to 16% of all Puerto Rican women from 1953 to 1954 getting forcibly
16% is a really big number.
Yeah. And according to a 1982 fertility family planning assessment, 846 out of 3,175 women had this contraceptive tubule stimulant. Yeah.
That's really sad.
Right. And 21% expressed some regret, and 11% expressed definite regret. Right. So based on everything we talked about today, what are some closing remarks, thoughts?
I think it's really sad that women have been forced to be sterilized in Puerto Rico, and the fact that the U.S. continues to just use them economically, and also people that are moving there for like tax reasons, not appreciating the culture, anything like that. I think it's sad in general how we have treated Puerto Rico and continue to treat Puerto Rico. There have been a politician who called it an island of trash. So that's just really sad, and I love Puerto Rico, and I wish them the best.
All right, what's your favorite Bad Bunny song?
Wait, that's really hard. That's really hard. Moscow Mule.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you for talking. And yeah, that's it.
Hi, thank you for being here. Could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Hi, I'm Mia. I'm a junior at Baruch College, and I am a biology major, and I'm ready for the interview.
Okay, thank you. So here we are today at Baruch College, interviewing a little bit about people's knowledge on Puerto Rico and the knowledge about sterilization towards Puerto Rican women in Puerto Rico. So have you heard anything about Puerto Rico? Do you know a little bit about Puerto Rico?
A little bit, not too much, but I've heard a bit here and there.
So what do you know about Puerto Rico?
That they are a U.S. territory, but they're not really part of the U.S. But I don't really know much about the culture or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, basic
That's very
facts.
Cool. Okay. So, as you said, Puerto Rico is a territory of the U.S. Its political status has played a huge role in the economy. So, whatever the U.S. says goes, basically, in terms of like the economic and the political state of Puerto Rico. Knowing that, do you believe Puerto Rico should be a sovereign nation, a state, or remain a territory?
I believe they should be a sovereign nation just because it will allow them to have more freedom and allow them to really go with what their government says, and so they don't have to follow what the U.S. territory says or what the U.S. says specifically, and it will just allow them to do what they want to do, not just follow what the U.S. government says just because that's what it says and it goes that way.
Okay, so one of the most disturbing outcomes from Operation Bootstrap was the forced sterilization of Puerto Rican women. Do you have any idea what sterilization could mean?
Maybe just not making, not allowing women to have kids.
That's basically it, yes. So forced sterilization was a practice of permanently preventing people from having their children. So it's basically population control in the Puerto Rico community. It was mainly widespread throughout the mid-1900s, where it mostly flourished. Then, after the Great Depression, the U.S. government took direct control over Puerto Rico's economy. So they basically did Operation Bootstrap to help boost the economy.
Okay.
Hearing from this, what emotions or thoughts come to mind?
I think it's sad. I think it's concerning, and it's just, very kind of upsetting as a woman myself, the fact that other women at the time had to go through that pain and struggle just to boost their country's economic state.
Okay. Do you think did you think it would be considered a human rights violation?
Absolutely, because it just cuts out women's rights to do what they want with their body. I know that at the time it wasn't really much of a say. Like, women didn't have much of a say, no matter either way, like in the U.S. or out the country. In this case, Puerto Rico, they didn't really have much of a say of what they wanted to do with their bodies. So I do think either way, like, that's still a human rights violation, because they were just cutting off women's ability to reproduce, and that's like a natural right. It's just what the human body is meant to do. So I think it's just upsetting, and it's just kind of sad in that way.
Okay, Mia, you've been great. Now, what do you think people should take away from this sort of lecture, sort of history, background on sterilization of Puerto Rican women?
that not everyone had the ability, or not everyone had the ability to choose what they wanted to do with their body as we do now. Although our country is still struggling to fight that battle to allow women to do absolutely anything with their body, when it includes when it comes to kids, like abortions or anything like that. We're still fighting that, but I think it's also important to recognize how far we've come from then to now.
Okay, Mia, thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing some time to learn about the Puerto Rican woman and the sterilization that happened in the mid-1900s.
Of course, thank you for having me.